Yo, 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 look who's on time and pre-setup.
Look at you. I guess you got a house to yourself again today. That's nice.
Mhm.
And it's always a plus having a whole place to ourselves to be able to record.
It
You know
makes a
what?
huge difference.
A huge difference. And oddly enough, I thought that for most of our shows, I was going to have issues with construction because we have these guys here doing retrofitting for our apartment. They have not been here. Like,
Go figure.
yeah, I'm like, oh my God, I'm thinking it's gonna be like this nightmare situation, and it's been fucking silent. I could rec
Sweet.
I could record a musical album if I felt like it. So I'm just like,
You should.
I should, right? I should work on my next album. But anyway, how are you doing?
Okay, so before we start for our listeners, because our listeners don't need to hear this, but our viewers might be interested because I've realized the past few episodes, we've been talking about my dating experiences now that
Okay.
I'm back on like dating apps. And the fucking most annoying shit. Yesterday, I matched with this guy. We're chatting, and he asks if we can move it to text because chatting through the app sucks. And I'm totally
Yeah.
fine with that.
Yeah.
And so we move it to there, and it's in the evening. And I tell him that because he asked what I'm doing that night. And I'm like, dude, sorry, like I'm meeting a friend for dinner. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now is I'm just chilling, waiting for her to show up, chatting to you. Long story short, I don't respond. Like I chat with him and then she comes and then I don't respond for a couple of hours because my friend came and we're
Hmm.
talking. And at like 11 o'clock at night, the dipshit sends me a message saying like, peace out and writing me off because I don't respond. And he's like, see, this is the problem with Bumble. People don't respond. And I was like, it's been like 3 hours and I told you that I had plans with a friend. So I'm not really sure why your panties are in a bunch over this. And he was
Wow.
like saying it's a red flag. And I was like, the fuck, this is a red flag.
Well, that's actually a red flag, the stuff that he pulled. You like
True.
dodged a serious bullet with that situation because if you would have made it onto our, if it would have gone any further, there's a good chance he would have been controlling if he's like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well,
Like, where are you? Why aren't you texting me back? I sent you a message. You didn't say anything. It's like, wow, I saw in the
dude, we
future.
literally just met. And because it's iPhone to iPhone, which I finally figured out how to turn this fucking feature off,
Oh, the
it
red
gave
thing.
it gave him my name, my full name. And so he texted me back and he used my full name in the text. And I was like, wait, how'd you get my freaking last name? He didn't answer, but he unmatched me and then blocked me. I was like, calm yourself. Seriously,
Wow.
calm the fuck down.
He obviously has a maturity level of 9-year-old.
Honestly, I
Yeah.
just I couldn't believe it. I was just like, oh, this is what women are talking about. Like, I get it. Like, I've learned now that when I give my phone number to someone that I didn't realize if it's Apple to Apple, iPhone to iPhone, it gives my full name and then they go and Google me. And that screwed me multiple times. But I think I finally figured out how to turn that feature off.
Oh, that's interesting. But at the exact same time, I would say it is negative to say that it screws you because this is your career. This is your calling. This is what you do with your life. And if you feel that it screws you out of dates, I don't think that's a great approach because I
It's
mean,
true.
yeah,
It
I
just,
mean,
it doesn't give me a chance to explain because people freak out when they hear you're a dating coach. Oh my God, are you going to judge me? And then I have to explain what a dating coach really does and what
mhm,
I am all about in my practice.
yeah.
And then usually they're pretty chill about it. But if they find out before, it's super intimidating.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well,
I've been working my ass off to be searchable on Google.
well, yeah, I mean, but that's a whole other topic we're not going to get into right now.
Right.
But as far as your career goes, you kind of have the same. I guess you would say, symptoms that a female comedian would have, that a
Mm-hmm.
female CEO would have, that anyone with any kind of ambition
True.
or entrepreneurial spirit would have, unless you were, let's be honest, a Caucasian, or at this point, a Black or Indian or whatever male, a male, basically. So I think you're just dealing with all of that because we are still living in a society that there's a veil of taboo over the working woman. Still
Mm-hmm.
is, hasn't gone away. Even though we have a vice president that's a female, even though we have plenty of CEOs that are females, there's still that veil.
Right.
That being said, there are men out there that will be happy to be on your side and will be happy to be the arm candy of the successful, powerful woman, and would never say that, oh, it was a deterrent when I found out she was a coach. The guy that's going to be with you is going to be proud that you're a coach. My husband, even though there are days where I am weirdly ashamed of my skills or I'm not as confident as I could be, he's still like my biggest fan as far as me being an actor, as
Aw.
far as me being an artist. He totally supports everything I do, and likewise. So I think for the healthy situation would be a guy that's like, damn, she's a dating coach. This is cool. This will be interesting. This will be a unique experience to have as far as being in a relationship. You can have a
That's true.
Stedman, honestly. There's nothing bad about it. I mean, how
They're
does
just
it really?
harder to find.
Yeah, I also think that it's the pool that you're in.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think the further away you are from like a metropolitan area where there's like at least, an artist community or like a finance community or some kind
Mm-hmm.
of thriving industry, you're not going to get those like upwardly mobile professionals or the people that are adjacent to that would be more
Right.
open to different kinds of person. This is objectively speaking. I am not certified anything for those of you watching, but yeah, I think it's out there for you. I just think you're in the wrong pool. That's all.
Yeah, I thought this guy was going to be perfect because he's a transplant from Texas, a recent transplant.
Girl, you said Texas.
I know, but I was like hoping maybe
You can take the cowboy out of Texas, but you cannot take the
Texas
Texas out of the cowboy. Yeah, let's be real. I
Um,
love people from all walks of life, all of our wonderful states. But the
mhm.
one thing that I have accepted is that based on where you were raised, there is an underlying tradition that you're going to have. And there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, embrace it, accept it. If we embrace and accept who we are, then it helps us get past at least that. That being said, I would think a man from Texas would not be into a modern woman. I've had friends. No, it sounds
Yeah,
extreme. It sounds extreme. Based on what is happening in Texas as of today,
the
Wednesday,
majority. Yep. Mhm.
exactly. What happened today, that tells us that there's still a value system in place for people
Mhm.
who live there, who are born there, and no matter where they go, it's with them. So
Right. So true.
you might be better off with like a
Anyways,
Silicon Valley dude. I can kind of see
oh my
that.
God, I could see that too.
A Tesla driving dude
Oof.
who's confident, who maybe has his own like tech business or some bullshit like that. I love it.
He just has to understand that when I'm in a relationship, I like to be the feminine energy
Mhm.
in the relationship. But when it comes to my business, I have to tap into a lot of masculine energy. And so what you see and what you hear from me business wise is not what you're going to get from me in the relationship. But
Yeah.
with that said, maybe we should start for our listeners.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, welcome back, listeners. We are happy to have you on our season 1 finale.
Uh,
Our viewers are probably watching us going, what is with those two? But
it has been such an experience so far. I remember the inception of this show was, it's just a working thought. And, a friend of ours asked, linked us together. And we had a lot of ideas at first, and a lot of them have, fleshed out very well.
mhm.
But this has been a fun journey so far.
It really has. It's been It's been so cool. And it's been
Yeah.
awesome to hear all the feedback from the listeners.
Hmm.
And I appreciate their patience. You know, this is our first season working together and doing this podcast, hopefully, first of many. So I appreciate all the feedback we get from you guys. And remember, if you have any thoughts or concerns, even, or want to share a story or have a
Yeah.
question, to email us at datesmartersexier@gmail.com.
I love it if we could start getting stories. And there's this page on Twitter that I follow. I think it's called Secret Confessions or some shit like that. I don't know. Well,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. But what happens is people send in like desires they have that maybe they don't partake in with their partner, or maybe they're single and want to do yada, yada, yada. I would love
Right.
it if our listeners sent in maybe like their most fantastic date scenarios, or like
Or a
weird
secret
date,
confession.
or a secret confession. Um, we won't share your name. We will tell you that
No,
right now, because
never.
with email, it's a little harder. We do need to work on something, I guess, where we can have people send us stuff in an anonymous way.
That's anonymous.
Yeah, we're going to work on something like that. But
Yeah.
for right now, do know we will not share your identity of whatever the story is that you're sharing with us. It's completely anonymous. That being said, I would love to start talking about some of these wonderful stories that we sometimes hear from our guests that come on our show when they start to share about
Yeah.
their dating experiences. And I'm just like, wow. Because when we did the 20 questions, I'm sorry, episode 20,
Right. 10.
answering your question,
Yeah.
that
That's
was
what it was.
fun. Yeah. I'm like,
My
that was
brain's
fun.
rattled.
Yeah,
That was fun. That was
it
fun.
was
We
fun.
probably could have gone on for hours doing that one,
Yeah.
which is why we will continue to do that one.
Mhm.
Um,
And your group is so engaged.
isn't that crazy for only having like 300 and something members? They're so engaging. I appreciate all of the thoughtful comments that everyone in that group makes.
Yeah,
I've seen other groups that have 10, 20, 30,000 people in it, and there's nothing happening.
nothing.
It's the weirdest thing. So
Yeah,
I would much rather have a smaller group that's very much engaged in conversation, very thought provoking conversation too.
very thought provoking, just
So
to say the least.
today we are going to jump back in to COVID, love, and depression. I don't think we've even worked out the order of this for the title, but I guess you'll know if you're listening, it'll be up.
Yeah. Well,
We'll figure
if
it
you see
out.
those three words in the title, this is the episode.
You know, what I found really ironic is that we're recording this episode, obviously, way before you guys are listening to it, but it happens to also be the same day that San Luis Obispo County has reinforced a mask mandate.
Mm,
All indoor areas, you must, whether you're vaccinated or not, wear a mask. And I thought, how funny that they do this on the same day that we're recording this episode yet again about COVID. Our
yeah.
first episode was about COVID and love. And here we are talking about COVID still.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's a great bookend for our season because we started off talking about how complicated it is to find love and navigate dating when you can't even go out. And here we are. What is it? Almost 18 months, over 18 months we've been
More
going.
than that.
Yeah, it feels like forever. And like we see little glimpses of getting back out there, but then slowly we see things being taken back. I mean, my sister works in a hospital. She says right now there's about 730 people with the new Delta variant, of course, all unvaccinated in the hospital and, the critical care or whatever. And it's just so sad because now I'm thinking like, are we all going to be dealing with like this thin layer of PTSD, anxiety, whether we're dating? I mean, because even when I've gone out lately and I've done things that are supposedly fun for me, there's this underlying layer of existential angst that still feels like it's around. Like
Mm-hmm.
you see the mask, you ever so often hear the stories about someone dying, and even if you're in a loving relationship, you still feel like not only is life precious, but time is, you just never know what can happen, when it can happen, and how it's going to
Right.
happen. So I would imagine now for people who are single, this has to be a trying time. Single people and new parents, I would imagine, because you're bringing
Right.
a child into this uncertain world. And for single people, it's like, damn, I at least want to fuck before I go out.
Well, I think for the dating realm of it, it's not even, it's just the fact that you are meeting someone new constantly. The
Mhm.
only way to know if you have anything in common with someone really is to, you have to meet them. Sure, you can text all you want, but you need to meet face to face. You need to hear how someone's intonation is and if their body language matches up with yours at all and if there's any chemistry. So it's just so vital to being able to move into the relationship phase
Mhm.
that you have to come face to face with someone new, someone that you don't know what their beliefs are around the vaccine. Some of the apps have now a little button or spot or whatever for you to say if you're vaccinated or not, which I appreciate that they have that. I won't meet someone in person if they're not vaccinated.
You know what's interesting about that? Because it's almost thrusting us into this sci-fi world in a way where it's
Mhm.
like now we're having to disclose things. But if I could be totally honest with you, stuff like this has existed for gay people for a long time, where there's many profiles out there where there is an option to say whether you are HIV positive or negative. And if
Oh,
anything, in many dating profiles, people would say neg or no neg or pause or on prep or some kind of health thing to let
wow.
others, yes. So while this is very new for like the straight dating world and even the world as a whole, because now we're
Mhm.
having to have like vaccination passports, like that girl that got in trouble in Hawaii recently. But yeah, for gay people, this has been a thing since dating apps and dating profiles have been around because of HIV. And so it's interesting to see that a straight woman now experiencing this, and you're saying what a negative person would have said maybe 10 years ago. I am not meeting someone who is HIV positive under any circumstances, which then leads to people lying about it, saying that they're
Right.
not. Yeah,
Ah, God, that's so true.
yeah.
Anyways, but our poor guest is like chilling in the waiting room. I already texted her to tell her just hang tight one more minute.
Yeah. I mean, this is all
But
very depressing, but it's,
I know it's the reality of it. Today we're going to focus um, a little bit on COVID, mostly on depression. We really want to talk about depression. And I feel like it just naturally kind of lends into COVID as well, because people who have suffered from depression are now having a very different experience being a year and a half into COVID.
yeah.
And here we are, people who didn't have depression now have depression.
Yeah.
And so our guest today is somebody who's suffered from depression, I think all of her life, most of her life since she was younger. Um,
Is it just
and
me, or does it seem like depression is a common, is it a disease? What would you consider it? It's not a disease because that's something you could like, but is it
right.
a common, what
I
would you
know what the
consider
word you're looking for.
that?
I can't think of the word.
Okay, but those of you listening, it's more common than you think, which is
Yes.
why we should talk about it. But go ahead.
And undiagnosed. So many people out there have depression and feel there's a taboo around being diagnosed. But honestly, get diagnosed. If you think that you have depression, see a professional and get yourself a diagnosis so that way they can help you.
Yeah.
They can either prescribe medicine or change of diet or exercise or whatever, because everyone's level of depression is very different and their needs are different. So see a professional and get the help that you need. And with that said, I think we should go ahead and introduce our guest for today, because I don't want to talk too much about this without her being here. So we are welcoming today Sarah Beth. And
Hi, Sarah Beth. Oh, you're muted.
Pause for technical difficulties.
Sorry about that, guys.
And technical difficulties over. Shit happens.
And welcome to the show, Sarah Beth.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
So happy to have you.
Behind you, and I have yellow behind me.
You guys are matchy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What is your picture of? It looks like a desert somewhere.
It's actually a village in Vietnam.
Oh, it's so pretty.
That my husband got on his travels when he was
Oh.
traveling in Asia.
Oh, gosh, that's someplace I would actually love to visit sometime. It seems so romantic there. I mean, in the pictures, it seems romantic. I don't know how romantic it is in person, but it looks really cool. That's a beautiful picture. Well, thank you for coming on the show today. We felt like we couldn't have this conversation without you. Yeah, we were chatting a little bit before you came on about how a lot of people are dealing with depression because of COVID. And even Andrea was saying that, people have to seek out help. What is your take on how COVID has really affected the mindset of a lot of people over the last, I guess, almost 2 years we're going to soon be up on in March coming?
Yeah. In some ways, as someone who's suffered from depression for all of my adult life, most of my teen years, I feel like it almost levels the playing field in a kind of perverse way. People who never really understood what I was talking about, including my husband, who's very, very supportive, but just didn't feel it, has started to feel fringes of it. That kind of, I think people think depression means sex. And a lot of times, depression means not feeling like you're stuck in this never-ending cycle. Sound familiar to anyone with COVID?
Yeah,
for sure.
So that kind of helpless feeling, and that kind of it's all too big and it's too much and nothing I can do can fix it. And it's kind of, in some cool ways, opened up good conversations for me with a lot of friends and family who maybe wanted to understand what I was feeling and struggled to.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you've suffered. First of all, correct me on my language. Do you say that you suffered with it or struggled with depression, or is there a faux pas around this there?
It really depends on the person. A lot of people don't want to have a victim mindset, and so they don't like the words struggle or suffer. For me, I like to normalize that it is an actual chronic illness, and it doesn't make me less of a human, but it is, or less of a good person or anything. Right. It's just a part of me. So I don't mind the word struggle. In fact, it feels pretty accurate for me. And then that just helps me remember that, on days when I wake up and I'm just tired and I can't do stuff, it's not because I'm bad. It's because I'm suffering from an illness and it's taken a hold that day. So it would depend on the person, but not for me.
So if you were you officially diagnosed?
Yes.
So how did you know? Because we talked about before we brought you on, we kind of did a little disclaimer of please seek out a professional and get diagnosed. How did you even know that there was something going on with you?
In that way, I had a leg up. My grandmother suffered from depression, and my dad grew up around that. And so when I started having symptoms, they were pretty quick to catch it and get me into family therapy when I was quite young, which if you have any kids and you're listening to this and you can see any signs, I really think that helped me so much, that it was so normalized in my childhood and I was given tools from such an early age. But some of the things that they saw that helped them register was I'm a very extroverted and very loud. And there were a lot of times where I just wouldn't get out of my room, or I would hide underneath my bed and withdrawing from myself and from the group things a lot. That was a big one. Really oversensitive. Like if you say something that isn't supposed to be a criticism, like, oh, wow, you went from a size 4 to a size 6 pant. And then the person just starts crying uncontrollably and leaves the room. Part of depression is what my therapist calls your little depression monster, who sits on your shoulder and filters everything you hear to make it sound a million times worse. So if they're really oversensitive to things, it's because they're literally not hearing you. So my parents would say, what did you hear me say?
Wow, that's a great
Oh,
way
that's
to respond to
clever.
that.
When it was really different from what they said, they're like, okay, she's processing the world differently. So that's a
Mm.
really good question in
That's
general.
actually I was gonna say that's a fantastic question in general, because even when you think about texting sometimes, it's like you read it and then you interpret it with the way you're feeling, but it's almost like you need to call the person and be like, so how were you trying to say this sentence? Because in my mind, based on how I feel right now, it comes off very negative, but I'm pretty sure that's probably not what you meant to say. So tell me, what did you mean to say? I think that's a fantastic way to ask someone, what did you hear me say? Because we really only take things in how we
Right.
see it or how we perceive
It's
the world.
very effective communication.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, like, really, if you think about the most effective ways to communicate, that is one of them, to confirm that you're hearing things correctly. It's empathetic listening too. So you kind of learned that from a young age.
And it's really, I noticed it changes the scope a lot when you said, what do you think I just said to you? Which is like, there's something wrong with you and you heard me wrong, versus what did you hear me say is like a non-judgmental way to ask. So that's just a good question for everyone, whether you're depressed or not, but a good
Yeah, it
way
is.
to gauge with your friends and family.
Where do you think some of the, I mean, I know for a long time historically, there's been a stigma around depression, or it's been linked to other chronic illnesses that are known. Today, as far as like being social, just being, everyday humans, where do you think a lot of the stigma still comes from? Because I could think prior it was about, being strong and no matter what, you hold your head up high and deal with the blows that are coming your way. In your opinion, where do you think a lot of this stigma comes from, and what keeps people afraid to really share or even find out?
I think one thing is, especially if you're my generation, a millennial, we get called whiners a lot by people who are older than us.
Okay.
And there's just kind of this, we hear the word snowflake getting used a lot.
I've heard that so much.
And actually having like proper boundaries doesn't make you a snowflake, and suffering from a mental illness doesn't make you a snowflake. But it can be, when you have like a depression voice monster and you don't know that it's separate from yourself and separate from truth, you don't know what everyone else is hearing. You don't know what it's like for other people. So you internalize it and you just think, maybe I am a whiner. Maybe I am being too sensitive and I just need to toughen up and I just need to let it shrug off. And I just need to push through the feelings of like disconnectedness, or push through whatever those feelings are, because they're just in my head. And they are in your head, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And you think people
Wow.
are afraid that others might think that they're crazy if they were to just say, the voices in my head are making me feel this way.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But mostly
That's
just
fair.
right. And just no one wants to be a complainer, and no one wants to feel like one of the double-edged swords with depression is you feel like a burden to people. And so you don't want to burden anyone. And
do you feel like you have to always be self-reliant and independent and no matter what's happening. I mean, are you still working through it now with even within your relationship with your husband? Within your relationship, do you find yourself doing things on your own more when that's happening and pushing him away, or like what happens?
Yeah. So we learned two things pretty early on in the relationship. One is, contrary to what a lot of people say, if you're feeling like really upset by something someone said,
Mhm.
don't go fight about it right now. Giving yourself a little time and space to process it and say to yourself, did I hear that correctly? Is that the depression monster reacting? Am I having a bad day today? Did I eat food today? Did I
Mhm.
walk in sunshine today? Did I
Mhm.
do all of those things? And then come back and say, you know what? That actually really did hurt my feelings. And we should talk about fixing that language or fixing that problem.
Mhm.
But the other thing I learned was that it's okay to wake up in the morning and realize you're having a bad day and share that with your partner right away. The sooner they know, the easier the day is, because once they learn tools for communication during those days, like my husband's ex also struggled with depression, and one of the things he said was that he felt like he was always careful in case she was having a bad day. And if you can like
Ah,
self-realize, hey, I'm having a really hard time right now, and tell them earlier, then it frees up the rest of your life to really live it and not
yeah,
suffer from it.
yeah.
That's a really good point. And it's a good point to the fact that everyone handles depression differently, right?
That is true. I mean, we are all unique.
Mhm.
Not no two people are alike. So that means all of our experiences with reacting to emotional responses are, of course, going to be different for everyone. So I think it's important that there's always that open room for communication within a relationship.
Mhm.
And especially when you're dealing with something, especially when you're struggling with something, because in my relationship, sometimes I do go through like emotional ups and downs. I do have mood swings where there's some days I wake up and I'm just like in a funk. There have been times where we will go to like the Huntington Library, one of the most beautiful places in Pasadena or Marin County, whatever it's called. And I'm like depressed the whole time. I'm wearing all black. I have on sunglasses and I'm walking around with the stone face the entire time. Even though it's sunny out, it happens, but somehow he's figured out I'm lucky enough to have a partner. When he sees me like that, he doesn't respond to it by fighting me. He doesn't
Mhm.
respond to it by taking it as a personal attack against him.
Yeah.
So it's great that there's an open level of communication there, because without it, I feel like our relationships will fall apart.
I
Yeah.
think it's important for everyone, whether they're diagnosed with depression or if they're just having bouts of depression, because that is happening right now with COVID. People are just feeling depressed a little bit more than they would have any other time. And to just know that, own that. If you are feeling down, if you are feeling unmotivated, whatever it is that you are feeling in that moment, it's okay. Accept it, but share it with your partner.
And
Because,
that
like you
is
said, Sarah Beth,
actually,
that's important.
yeah, that actually like really leads really beautifully into the best tool that my therapist gave me. And we call it my depression toolkit. And it's something I shared with my partner so that sometimes when you're depressed, you can't remember your tools. So it's helpful if someone outside of it knows the tools too. Um,
Ah.
and that's when you acknowledge your depression and you confront it head on, it takes away some of your depression monster's power. So if you're having like a panic attack, and you feel like the walls are caving in and you're totally freaking out, she told me that if you challenge your panic attack and say, yeah, I am having a panic attack, and guess what? I have survived every other panic attack that you've ever thrown my way. How long before I beat this one? Let's start counting. And you just start counting out the panic attack. I've never made it past 30 seconds.
Cool.
That's an awesome
Um,
tool, actually.
I know. I want to try that next time I'm having like a panic attack over something.
Yeah, I mean, it's like self-acknowledgement, I guess, in a way. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, that is super cool.
Yeah.
and so
But
that's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say that was like the best thing that I taught my partner, because then when I'm panicking, he's like, you've got this. You've beaten every other panic attack you've ever had. Count with me. And it's good to have someone to be able to pull you into that space, because it is hard when you're panicking to remember all of your tools, because the
Yeah.
world is
That's
closing in.
true.
Now,
Yeah.
you say all of this, but I do want to ask you a sort of personal question.
Shoot.
Let's rewind back to March 2020 when all this is being, because our episode is basically about love, depression, and COVID. How long have you been married?
We got married March 18th, 2020.
March, oh my God. Okay, so this is even better. Okay, so my question to you is, what was the first 6 to 8 months like, being that you went from having your freedoms, whatever that may have looked like, to now being with this person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whereas maybe before you had your jobs to like separate you, or your hobbies to like, have something to keep you engaged outside of the relationship, and then you come back to it to share those experiences. What was that 6 months like? The first, 'cause for me, it was a little bit of a struggle at first, but we got through it. What was it like for you?
Yeah, it was absolutely a struggle. I don't think if you didn't struggle the first 6 months, I want to learn from you. You are a Yoda. But we definitely did. There was growing pains. One of the things was I still was working remotely, and my partner was not working. Well, he's a pilot, so for a while there were no flights.
Heard
So he was
that.
home all the time.
Yes.
And so one of the things that people don't maybe necessarily know is a symptom of depression is overstimulation.
Mm,
So all of a sudden, he was there all the time playing his music all the time, and I like my quiet times and my no light times, and to rest my sensory cells. And I would get so overstimulated, I would just like I lock myself in the laundry room because it was dark and quiet and cold.
Oh,
And that was definitely a big learning curve for us. We invested in some great noise canceling headphones, and we moved my office upstairs, and he does not play video games upstairs while I'm working anymore.
well, that's good. So it's good that you two set up boundaries. That's awesome. But go ahead.
We were lucky enough to have the space to do that.
Mhm.
But that was definitely part of it. And just a lot of emotions, because we
Yeah.
were so freaked out and scared. But like I said earlier, the one thing that really, I think in some ways we're closer than ever, is
Yeah.
that he is someone who gets his energy from live shows and music and people and crowds. And
Well, hold on. Are you screwing with something?
sorry, I'm a fiddler.
literally.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No. It's
I won't fiddle. Yeah, so he's someone who really gets all of his energy from live musics and shows and going to see theater and all of that. And without it, he was starting to get a little depressed. And in some ways, it opened up some really cool conversations for us about what we're feeling, and understanding each other's point of view even better than we had before. And now we like share a brain. Like he's so much more intuitive of what I'm going through and vice versa than we were before. So even though the first 6 months was definitely like growing pains, if you can communicate through it, and it can make it a lot
Yeah.
even closer.
I only ask
sure.
because a lot of, not a lot, but we've seen like in the news and the tabloids, or even amongst our friends, people have gotten divorced or they just split up abruptly in the first like 90 days of the lockdown. So I feel like over the last like 18 months plus, you've either gotten really close with your partner or very far apart because it's like a crash course in the other person. Now, you mentioned you like your quiet time. Do you feel like throughout all of that, did you deal with your depression coming up more because of the self-isolation that had to happen, coupled with the, imminent fear of what's possibly out there? Like, how did you handle and still handle, like, do you still just use your tools, or have you slowly gone back to your past routines to implement to get back into like your daily life?
Wow. I don't think I did perfect. I backslid into a lot of my more destructive behaviors for a long time. Now I've been starting to get out of it. But I started picking and biting my nails again, which was a big one for me before, pulling out my hair again, not exercising again. Now that Michael's flying again, that means there's no one home for 4 days. That can mean my own hygiene starts to go down. And every day you have to make a choice to wake up and try again if you didn't do it the other day. And so that would be like my biggest thing, is just marking the passage of time and waking up every day and saying, well, it didn't work out yesterday, but that's yesterday.
Yes.
And today I woke up and jogged first thing in the morning. And this morning I took a shower and washed my hair. And every day can be better than the last day. You can't focus on all the ways you slipped up and fell.
I think that's great advice for anyone with depression or without depression. It's just to keep in mind that every day is a new day. You can start that day fresh and start start over pretty much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Will you kind of backtrack a little bit with us into your dating before marriage, and how, say I'm trying not to give your age away, but let's put you back into like your early 20s.
Okay.
And I know anyone who's watching us is probably thinking, well, isn't she in her early 20s?
Yeah, you look very young.
We're not sharing her age. But anyways, thinking back into your early 20s, you have this diagnosis of depression. You are at this point of your life where you've kind of figured out how to navigate it, and you're trying to date different people. How do you approach that with a partner?
Well, one thing is, not every partner will work. I've had people say to me, your depression depresses me and brings me down. And that sucks. But if it's their truth, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just like anything else that's like a deal breaker. I hate that word, but there are things that just don't work. So if you're someone who's like a huge empath, maybe dating someone with depression is not for you.
Probably not.
Because my current partner has an amazing way of just being like, okay, well, I understand that you're where you're at. I'm going to keep doing my thing. And that actually makes things easier, right? Like you were saying, Kanan, earlier at the library, Huntington Library, that if your partner can just keep walking and keep enjoying the day, because otherwise you feel bad for bringing them down, and that perpetuates the cycle. So then it's destructive for both of us. And so that's one of the things. The other is to like not force your partner to be also your therapist.
Shit, I didn't even think about that one.
If you're dating someone, it can be, we're used to this idea of partners being like, oh, they're my best friend and I confide everything in them and they're my partner through life. And that can be true and still not be your person who has to handle all of your illness with you.
Wow.
Um,
That was kind of a
That's-
revelation just now because I do know we do that. We do that in our best friend relationships as well as our love relationships, where it's like, okay, every emotional thing that I've experienced, I have to talk it out with my partner and they have to give me a response.
Right. You
But that's
can't
a little
wear
unfair.
every freaking hat in the relationship. You can't be the therapist. You can't be the best friend. You can't be the mother, the father, the son. Like you can't do all of the things.
Mm.
and you can't expect them to be your lover at the end of the day when they just had to drag you through to the shower. Do you know what I mean? Like if you,
Yeah.
that's
I
an
mean,
unfair expectation.
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, how do you, I mean, not to be an asshole, but how do you find sexual attraction after peeling someone off the floor? You know,
Right. No, that's really legitimate, you know? It's why like a lot of women say like I don't want to mother my spouse because
Yeah.
it's hard to be sexually attracted to someone that you just mothered. It's the same thing. My partner
Ugh.
can't peel me off the floor and can't be responsible for all my grossest lowest lows and then expect him to be like, oh yeah, that turns me on. It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. I mean, it could, depending on the person, but
I mean, seeing that you kind of went there about the turn-ons, I'm curious now, and this is perfect to talk about because it will kind of lead into our season 2 a little bit. But having depression and sex,
Yeah.
does it interfere with your sex life? I know it does. How does it interfere with your sex life?
Well, like I just said, I mean, hygiene's an important part of sexiness. It just is. And it's one of the things that people with depression struggle with, basic hygiene. I know that's gross to say.
I can understand why. If
Mhm.
it's not a priority on your list of things that you're thinking of that day, it just slips past your head. It's not like a
You kind of
gross
have-
thing.
Yeah, if you don't have a lot of energy, you focus on the things that have to happen and
Mhm,
you don't have energy for the things that could happen or should
Mm.
happen.
mhm.
So just making the decision, oh gosh, I hope you guys can't hear that. They're pounding.
They're actually working on your pool.
Yeah, right now, of course.
I know. Side note for all of our listeners, now they know that you have
Have a
people
pool.
working on a pool.
And my dog
Yeah.
is terrified, just ran over. It's okay, buddy. I know.
Oh, is he
So
actually
excited.
there with you?
Yeah, he just ran over. Well, he was in the other room, but he ran over because he's scared.
Do you feel like he helps out a lot too, in a way, with how you feel, your dog? I'm talking about your dog, not your husband.
Oh,
Right.
I mean, he loves me and he helps with loneliness and stuff. I don't know. He's
I
as
don't-
much as a nervous wreck as I am, which is great.
Well, at least you have someone to share that with. Because I always find like sometimes I wonder how much a pet would either improve my daily mood levels, because I noticed that with certain pets, you know, they love you unconditionally. And I feel like a lot of times when we're like sad and stuff, we tend to, for me, I tend to struggle with, does anyone love me? And I know with a pet, you know, that they're like looking up at you like, yes, of course I love you. Hug me, please. And it's just like, I
I
wonder.
don't know if you can even see, this is depressing. I don't know if you can even see that when you have depression brain, but I will say
Oh.
having a pet forces you, like I said, you focus on the things that have to happen.
Uh-huh.
Pets need to go outside. Pets need to be fed. And you're in the
Oh.
kitchen feeding the dog. Are you going to get yourself something to eat that you maybe wouldn't have fed yourself that day?
True.
Taking care of something else brings me out of my, you know, if he wasn't here, would I just stay in bed all day long on bad days and never get out of bed? But
That's
he
a good
needs me
point.
to get out of bed. He needs me to walk him twice a day. He needs me to feed him and check in on him. And that in and of itself,
Mhm.
because it's a have to happen, it
Yeah.
forces me up. And then once you're up, you have more energy. And
Right. So when the husband's not there, the dog kind of takes over a little bit in a way.
mhm.
Yeah, see, that's what I want. Like I had a cat before, but I thought my cat was so aloof that didn't really help me.
I can't imagine.
I mean, I'd be wanting to like cuddle, and she's like, no.
Oh.
I don't want
My
to
dog
cuddle.
is pretty aloof.
Really?
Yeah, we always say he's more like a cat than a dog.
That's always funny though. I think having a pet is always a good thing for some weird reason. Like I can see the benefits because I feel like so many people have either a dog or a cat, and they tend to be a little bit more ready to deal with life than a lot of some of the rest of us that are slightly unhinged on a daily basis.
That's true.
Just slightly. But that being said, to backtrack a little, we were talking about your dating and how it was working through that, and ultimately we talked about your sex life and dealing with that. Do you ever feel like in your sex life you have to push what you're feeling aside for your partner, and this could be now or in the past, had to push your feelings aside to satisfy your partner? Or is it important for your partner to be like, okay, you know what? She's not there. So I'm going to go off and do something else. I'm not saying what that something else is.
I'm gonna do me.
I'm going to do me. Yeah. Yeah.
One of my tools in my depression toolkit, I'm giving them all away today, you guys, is if you deal with the outside, the inside will sometimes follow. So if I don't feel sexy and I want to for the sake of my partner, the best thing I can do is take a super long shower, shave, put on something really cute, spend like 10 minutes doing my makeup, which is a really long time for me. And then put on a pair of heels and then go out. And that in and of itself, the process of doing that will put me in a better headspace for it. And then also, coincidentally, I look a lot more like the self that does turn him on than the one that was on the floor earlier.
Well, that makes perfect sense. It's funny you say that because in the acting world, that's actually something that teachers tell us all the time. Especially when you're doing character work or if you're in a scene that calls for a lot of emotion, if you allow the outside to stimulate you, if you at least practice it, and it's almost like faking it until you make it. If you start to laugh, eventually the laugh will be genuine.
Yep.
If you start to act like you're sad and try to force yourself to cry, eventually those feelings will be genuine. So I like where you're going with that. It's like if you want to get those feelings, create it, and eventually you'll catch up.
Yeah.
So that's helped you out a lot in the past. So
Oh,
hopefully those listening will write that down. You have a lot of tools you gave us today.
I know it's been helpful if you have depression or don't have depression. Really, if you think about it.
Yeah, I had a
Therapy
few
is wonderful,
moments.
you guys. And especially if you go to a therapist and you tell them, I want some tools for my toolkit, they'll totally help you get there.
It's cool that they did that for you because I do that for my clients with their dating toolkit. And so this is just like your little depression toolkit, and you can have probably a toolkit for just about anything that you are working on personal growth wise, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's so cool.
And then not to underplay therapy, but I know it's not possible for everyone. And so if you can't get to a therapist for whatever reason, journaling is like such a huge help for like an outlet to get it all out. Like I said before, you don't want to make your partner your therapist. It's fine to make a book your therapist. They're not going to take offense to it, you know?
I agree with you like 1,000,000%, to the point where I started a notebook collection line because all of my life, and I still have journals here from my teenage years, and I start to look back at them and start reading things that I said when I was like 16, 17. And being able to look back on some of those feelings, it's so cathartic in a way, because then you start to self-evaluate yourself, reflect, and really work through emotions that way. And just writing stuff down on paper, it's super beneficial. So I agree with you 110, 1,000,000% about journaling if you cannot afford to see a therapist.
Even if you can, journaling is very healthy. I journal, and we all really should be journaling to some degree, whether it's journaling to release or journaling to have gratitude. But everyone should be doing it, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
With that said, that is a great opportunity for us to close it down for our listeners.
Oh no.
Sarah Beth gave us so many good tools. I think you should all probably go back, re-listen, write them down in your new journal that you're going to order from Canaan's
Yes.
Notebook.
Oh yes.
What is it? Share it with us. Tell us what it is.
Well,
How do
so
you find them?
it's on Amazon. I sell them exclusively on Amazon. It's under CJD Publishing, but yeah, you should just look up CJD Publishing, but you can go to amazon.com/authors/Canaan's Notebooks. And I've had over 100 designs. Like I strongly
They're
feel
really
that
cool.
everyone should be journaling, regardless of who you are, just journal because all of us cannot afford therapy. Just journal, write your feelings down. Seriously.
And then
And
go
I'm not just-
back and read your journals and talk to your journals, and they're your friends and they're your therapists, and they know that you got through everything else.
Yeah.
They know that all of those things were just stepping stones to get where you are here. So you can learn so much from going back and reading them. It's not
Yes.
just a one-time use.
Yes, for
Right.
sure. Well, thank you so much, Sarah Beth, for being on this show and sharing so much with me personally, as well as Andrea, as well as our listeners about dealing and working through depression. And with COVID happening and still happening now with the new Delta variant, we don't know what the future holds for us. But with these tools that you've given us today, we have a better chance at surviving and getting out on the other side and getting back to enjoying life and dating and loving.
Absolutely.
Thanks for
And
having
having
me, guys.
sex, because that will be season 2.
Yes, more sex.
I'm down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're down for more sex, all of us, all 3 of us.
Right. Just not together so that our listeners understand.
I mean, you said it, not me.
With that said, again, listeners, please follow us, give us a like, give us love. We need all the love, whatever podcast streaming service you use. And we will be back for season 2 in November. I think the weekend before Thanksgiving is going to be our release of season 2, right, Kanan?
No, actually the weekend of Thanksgiving, the 28th will be our season premiere. Yeah. So
I don't know. He's in charge of all of that.
while after you've like fed yourself, stuffed yourself with all the food, watched all the football games, whatever, party with your family, had plenty of like sex with whoever you're dating with, listen to our show because we're going to be talking about sex, addictions, porn, and anything that gets you hot. We're going to keep you hot throughout the winter. So definitely come back in November. Well, November 28th, Thanksgiving weekend. We'll see you then, or we'll talk to you then.
Until then. Welcome to the post show.
Yes, hello, welcome back.
So I didn't prep Sarah Beth for any of this. My apologies. This was
technical difficulties.
No,
Oh, you're totally fine.
You gave us
It's
such an
part of
awesome
life.
Yeah.
So we do a post show for our viewers, the ones who get to see us.
Oh, hi everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
They've been watching you the whole time.
Yeah.
But this is where like we will get a little bit more like dirty and raw and like
Cool.
because people are paying for it.
Yeah.
Sounds like I just like pimped us out, but
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I don't mind being pimped out as long as there's money to be made. It's like with my whole career in Hollywood, people are like, are you willing to play certain parts? And I'm like, yeah, fuck, if it gets my name out there. I mean, I won't do anything that's like degrading to myself. Or maybe I will. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we should
depends
be
on
able
the
to
paycheck.
Yeah, it depends on the paycheck.
It's not degrading if you have self-worth. The whole idea is I'm worth this much.
Thank you. You know what? And I like the way you talked about depression in the episode. I like the way how you made it less negative. You made it more accessible to the everyday listener, where it's not like, oh, it's this weird dark thing that those weird people deal with over there. You really humanize it to the point where anyone can see and understand what's happening and what someone might be going through if they say that they're going through depression. So Yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean,
Sarah Beth is probably one of the best communicators I know.
It's because I've been in therapy since I was 13, y'all. Raise the roof.
wait, so would you say that therapy is just all about teaching you how to communicate?
I've gone through very many different cycles in my therapy. There have been, post-trauma therapy is really different than helping deal with like the daily struggle with depression. And so, and people have like different uses for therapy. Some people just need that extra person that's not their family or their spouse or their friend to listen to them talk about everything. I have some friends who are in therapy that say they like never really talk about tools or any of that. They just kind of brain dump. It's like a good brain dump. But for me personally, I love travel. It's a huge part of myself. And before going on trips, I would go to my therapist and say, okay, I need some tips on how to do the best I can on this trip. And that kind of led me to the whole depression toolkit thing in general. It was packing for my trips.
That's awesome. I feel like travel is that one thing that's kind of slightly underrated as far as the life experience it gives you, as well as the teachings and the wisdom that you gain from all of the trips that you take. There isn't as much, like there are people who live in the same town and have never left that town in the entire time that they've been alive. Or maybe they have gone as far as maybe 30 miles in the radius around where they live. Do you think and feel that out of all the travels, you have learned more from that than school or other kinds of training as far as how to deal with people and dating and everything about life?
I definitely think it's let me hone in on my communication skills in a huge way, and understanding the world better. School is important. I did great things. I learned a lot in school, but travel is definitely, I wouldn't be who I am today without travel. And I wouldn't have, my partner feels the same way. It's something that brings us together.
Well, he's a pilot. I would hope so.
When we got engaged in Thailand, and travel is part of it. So
that's pretty awesome that you get to share your wanderlust with someone. Yeah. Were you going to say something?
In fact, you were supposed to get married in Argentina.
I was supposed to. COVID.
Stupid
COVID. Wait, what ended up happening then? So you got married in March. So you were supposed to get married in Argentina. What ended up happening?
So we made a new game plan to have a courthouse wedding. On the 16th, we went and got our marriage license and and also found out that same day that the courthouses were closed and we wouldn't be able to. What's happening with the fingers?
Your mic.
Oh, I have my fiddling again.
Yeah. That means you're fiddling.
Oh, got it. So sorry, everyone. So we found out that the courthouses were closed. Luckily, my mom could marry us legally. So we got the marriage license anyway. On the 17th, the marriage license office closed, so we wouldn't have been able to do it if it was a day later. We spent the 17th driving around town, trying to find a place to get married. We found a restaurant that was supposed to open that weekend that wasn't able to open because of COVID. And they let us get married in their restaurant because it was just us six, me and his parents and my parents. And the chef was just so excited to cook for us. It was adorable.
This sounds like a beautiful romantic comedy that I want to see.
I know. I keep saying it's like a movie.
You should write it. No, seriously, this sounds so... I love it sounds like, okay, Argentina does sound amazing. I'm not going to lie, but this sounds more memorable. Like, yeah.
It was pretty special. And then we still got to have our big one with family and friends this last, in August. So just this last month.
Oh, well, congratulations again. Where did you have that one?
We had it at a wild animal rescue here in Texas where I live, because giraffes are my favorite animals, and they had 2 giraffes. So I got to have giraffes at my wedding, which seems like a good compromise from Argentina.
That is
And the
so-
donkeys came out and hung out with everyone. It was the coolest thing.
And the cows were mooing through the service. It was great.
It was great.
Blue Hills Ranch, if anybody's interested and they live near Texas, you can bottle feed the baby giraffes.
Oh my God, that sounds so beautiful. Wait, did you have like a theme wedding too? Like, was everyone dressed like country chic, or was it like a Pinterest type situation?
Not Pinteresty, except for that I made a gazillion origami giraffes and hung them everywhere. Other than that, it wasn't that Pinteresty. Not-
Like, you
Again,
had me-
depression, I had like big lofty Pinterest goals, and then depression was like, what are you thinking? You get one project, pick one.
Yeah, you're definitely not getting all these girls. So settle on origami. That's it. It's cool you had the giraffes. I mentioned to Andrea in the last one of the other episodes. I got to feed giraffes at the Palm Springs Zoo, and that's such a wonderful experience because they're not like horses, but they remind me of horses in a way because they're like cute, they're tall, they're powerful. I love them.
But gentle.
They're gentle giants.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a little jealous of your wedding. It sounds really cute.
Everyone should be
Aw.
jealous of my wedding. It was the best.
Yeah, I'm jealous
was.
just hearing about it.
So,
was
anything
definitely-
more about depression or relationships that I should answer while we're here in the post show, or just want to talk about my wedding? Because I can do that.
We can talk about your wedding because I actually like talking about weddings. I got married at the San Francisco City Hall, and when my husband planned it, I had no idea that's where we were going to get married. And I didn't see it ahead of time. I just let him do everything. He asked me to marry. I said yes. I'm basically the kind of guy, I just show up to things, like tell me the time and the date and I'll be there. I walk into this place and I'm like, holy shit, are we getting married in the Palace of Versailles or some shit like that? It's that stunning in person. So I'm glad we actually decided to get married on our own. Do you regret in any way, or are you happy that you had a small wedding instead of no, you just did the huge one in August, right? How
I
many
did
people did you
both.
have?
Well, it wasn't that big because of COVID. It was like 65,
Okay, I mean, it's not 300. For sure.
bigger than 6 though.
Yeah, bigger than 6.
Actually 7, because there was a news reporter at my first wedding because it was so cool.
Wait, okay, so there was giraffes, cows, and other animals. What else?
Oh, at the August wedding, there was giraffes, cows. They have emus, mini pigs. They have a kangaroo right now that's named Irwin, who's adorable. And they have river otters. You can actually come and
Oh, yeah, I
swim with
forgot
river
about them.
otters. We were supposed to do that, Andrea, and we forgot.
I know.
Wait, so paint this picture for me. I'm trying to like work this out in my head. So where did you get married there? So was your ceremony surrounded by animals? I'm picturing like the last scene in Lion King. And you guys are just like at the altar and there's just animals everywhere. And it was like, I'm sorry.
No, there's like so they have like a big watering hole.
Uh-huh.
And right next to the watering hole is a big covered pavilion. So we got married in the pavilion under the pavilion. And then we went and had our reception in the big barn that was like 200 feet uphill.
In heels?
I know, I rocked it though.
And
Okay.
the wind.
Oh,
The
yeah.
wind was insane.
Wow. What is
Yeah,
this place called again? I'm gonna look it up.
Blue Hills Ranch.
Blue
It's
Hills.
in Waco, Texas. And it's
It was a beautiful spot. When we were in the room getting her ready for the wedding prior, we looked out the window and we could just see deer chilling, walking by, running. Like it was just the coolest thing.
Oh, this sounds so pretty.
And I was packing up the car the next day with all of our stuff, and a donkey just kind of tried to get into the car with us. It was hilarious. He's just like, I think you have food. I think I saw some food in there.
I love the fact that you could get married any kind of way that you want. And I love the fact that you chose that kind of wedding because obviously animals mean a lot to you, I'm assuming.
Well, giraffe.
I'm sorry
but I
for
like
assuming.
animals too.
Okay, that's kind of cool. I like the idea. Is it what exactly attracts you and your husband besides travel? Like, does he have an appreciation for animals as well? Is he the kind of guy that enjoys going to museums and zoos and all that kind of stuff? Like, paint us a picture a little of your relationship. What kind of connected you two?
I think the main thing that connected us is our big old sense of adventure.
Okay.
And that comes through in travel, but also in that we like, big music shows and stuff like that.
Like the festivals, like a Coachella type situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never been to Coachella, but other music festivals. In fact, I'm going to one this month, which is exciting. If it still happens, who knows?
Fingers crossed.
Is it in Texas?
No, it's in Colorado.
It might
Maybe.
still happen.
Yeah. It would definitely happen if it was in Texas because we don't give a fuck here.
Good old Texas.
Awkward. Yeah, but I think that so this is actually a depression thing, but one of the things that like really attracted me to Michael as a partner is I'm very adventurous, but things really overwhelm me. Like I said, that sensory overload thing is like a big problem with my particular depression. And he also likes to try new things. And so he'll try new things and then talk me through it as like a little mini prep, which is really cute. And I've never had anyone do this for me before, but it's like the best thing ever before I try a new food, which is super sensory, right? Food is just like, it's mouthfeel, it's taste, it's smell, it's sight,
Texture.
Ugh. And so I get very stressed out by new foods, but when you're traveling in Thailand, you're not going to not have stuff,
Yeah.
And so he'll have a bite first, and then he'll talk me through what the bite is in many terms as he can, texture wise, what, is it acidic? Is it sweet? Is it whatever? And he'll like talk me through it so that I don't feel as overwhelmed by it. And then it's let me try a bunch more than I was ever able to try before.
Oh my God, I love this. What did you say his name is?
Michael or Mike?
Michael? Okay, Mike. Oh, that's so great that he did, because my husband does the same thing. Like, I'm adventurous too, but I'm also scared as fuck. Like, one of our first dates was an obstacle course, because I was trying to impress him. I'm like, ooh, let's go on this obstacle course. It's so much fun. I've never done one before in my fucking life. So we get there and we're in the harness and we're going through it. I'm like freezing up all the time. But then he was the kind of person that kind of like, okay, it's okay. This is not totally like yours, but I see where you were going. Like, he kind of pushes you through things.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not like panicked about it. Like,
yeah,
he does it in so many areas where a lot of times I would just say, no, I'm not going to fucking do that. I'm too afraid. Like the Tower of Terror here, or whatever you call it, Guardians of the Galaxy here in California. It's just that elevator.
Yeah,
he loves it.
That ride.
I'm scared, but I get on it every time we go because he loves it, but he always talks me through it. And I feel like something like that, when you have it really makes you feel special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like he's like my little spirit guide to get through stuff, and that just really helps. And it makes me enjoy everything a lot more. So like,
are you able to be
recommend.
goofy around him?
What do you think, Andrea? Am I goofy? I'm too goofy. He's like, you need to stop acting like a 6-year-old. Sometimes
she's a very playful personality.
I'll like come up to him and I was like, do you ever wish that we could like hold hands but with our feet and interlock our toes? And he's like, no, why would I want to do that? And he knows that he can't joke back because I will like literally do whatever the thing is. So like I'll tease him a lot, and at first he'd be like, oh yeah, we should totally do that. I'm like, great. And then I'll like do whatever the weird thing is, and he's like, remember, I have to find you attractive at the end of the day, so pull it together.
Well, it just sounds like you have a great partner, and I think if anyone finds someone like Mike, they're lucky.
Agreed,
because
100%.
it takes relationships takes a lot of patience and work, and people think that it's just easy, like, oh, we just connected, we fuck and we have fun. No, you actually have to like be able to work with the person. Like it's a puzzle piece, and some puzzle pieces just don't go together. And I
Mhm.
feel like in life you just got to find the guy, even if you think you're weird, even if you think you're strange, there is someone out there that's going to fit you
Yeah.
and fit your life. And I love
Or
that about,
intimidating.
or whatever that label is that you're carrying around, there is someone out there that's gonna be like, I like that shit. Let's go. Let's do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
someone out there for everyone.
Yeah.
There
for
really
sure.
is.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, to our viewers, thank you for subscribing. We
Yeah.
appreciate you so much. And don't miss out on November 28th. I keep forgetting the date.
Oh no, it's
Do not want to
okay.
miss that one. Oh,
No.
no. If you're a viewer, you actually already have access to that episode, don't you?
Episode 1 is now
Ooh,
available for you to watch.
Yes.
Our sex addictions episode. It's very
That's
eye-opening.
It
Very
is.
eye-opening.
Oh, I'm
It's a
excited to
great,
see it.
Yeah.
it's a great episode.
I don't think I have a sex addiction. I think I just really like it, but I'll find out.
Yeah,
You'll
you'll
find out. It's
actually
gonna
you
be
will
exciting.
find out. It's very eye-opening and you'll learn a lot about everything you just said.
Yes. So, viewers, thank you for watching us, and we will see you on the flip side.
See you
Bye.
soon.